Wondered what it really means to be brave. We usually picture courage as this total lack of fear, like a literal superhero power. But what if we've got it all backward? What if true courage is something much, much harder, and honestly, a lot more profound? Is true courage the complete absence of fear, or is it actually the triumph over it? I want you to hold on to that question, because today, we're going to explore the answer through the eyes of a man who literally changed the world.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into some amazing excerpts from one of the most powerful autobiographies of the 20th century. I'm talking about Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. We're going to unpack his personal reflections around a massively historic event, his 1994 inauguration as South Africa's very first black president. But look, this isn't just a history lesson. We're really going to trace Mandela's philosophical evolution. We'll see how his whole understanding of things like freedom, courage, and just basic humanity completely transformed over a lifetime of struggle.
Right, so let's start by looking at the dark reality that forms the entire backdrop of this narrative: apartheid. Mandela himself described this brutal system, which enforced strict racial domination against dark-skinned people in their own homeland, as one of the absolute harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever seen. This was the giant, the Goliath that Mandela and the African National Congress spent their entire lives fighting against.
And that brings us to the 10th of May, 1994. Dawning bright and clear, this specific day marked the end of that horrific era. The sheer, global scale of this victory, it was staggering. To put it into perspective, dignitaries from more than 140 different countries traveled all the way to Pretoria just to witness this moment. Mandela described it perfectly. He called it a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. Think about this. The very amphitheater at the Union Buildings where this all took place had literally been the seat of white supremacy for decades. And now it was hosting the installation of South Africa's first truly democratic, non-racial government.
Section 1. The Historic Inauguration.
The spectacle of this day was unlike anything the nation had ever seen. Just imagine the scene for a second. You've got this spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers just roaring in perfect formation over the Union Buildings. It wasn't just some flashy military show either. It was a highly visible pledge of loyalty to a brand new, freely elected democracy. But the most striking detail Mandela notes here is the behavior of the highest generals of the Defense Force and Police. Their chests were totally covered in ribbons and medals from the old regime, and they saluted Mandela. As he stood there taking it all in, he was acutely aware of a pretty stunning reality. Just a few years prior, these exact same men absolutely would not have saluted him. They would have arrested him.
The sheer emotional complexity of the day was probably best captured by the music. For Mandela, the day was totally symbolized by the playing of two very different national anthems. Picture this. On one side, you have white South Africans singing Die Stem, which was the old anthem of the Republic. And right there on the other side, black South Africans singing Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika, an anthem of the liberation struggle. Now, neither group actually knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, but Mandela knew. He just knew that soon enough, they'd all know the words by heart. It's just a beautiful, raw reflection of the really complex birth of a unified, healing nation.
Section 2. The Scars of Apartheid and the Cost of Freedom.
Now, obviously, this massive celebration was not free. Decades of crushing oppression and brutality produced men of truly extraordinary character, African patriots who came before him. We're talking about giants like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Luthuli, and Yusuf Dadoo. Mandela reflected that this was incredibly an unintended effect of apartheid. It actually required those absolute depths of oppression to forge such incredible heights of character. The profound hurt produced men of extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity. Mandela points out that, South Africa is extremely rich in minerals and gems beneath its soil, but its greatest, its truest wealth, it's the people. They are finer and truer than the purest diamonds.
And it was from these exact comrades in the struggle that Mandela learned the true meaning of that word we started this whole explainer with: courage. Time and time again, he watched men and women risk their lives, standing up to unimaginable torture without breaking. That's when it hit him. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumphs over it. Remember that myth of the fearless hero? Yeah, it's just a myth. The brave man isn't the one who doesn't feel afraid. The truly brave man is the one who conquers that fear. Seeing this resilience firsthand proved to him that man's goodness is like a flame. It can be hidden, sure, but it can never be completely extinguished.
Section 3. The Twin Obligations. So Mandela held this really deeply rooted belief that every human being has what he called twin obligations. On one hand, you have your very personal obligations, right? To your family, your parents, your spouse, your kids. But on the other hand, you have broader obligations to your people, your community, and your country. Now, in a civil, humane society, anyone should be perfectly able to fulfill both of these duties. But under the brutal system of apartheid, fulfilling both was literally impossible for a black South African. If a man tried to just live as a human being and fulfill his duty to his people, he was inevitably ripped away from his family. He was forced into this twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. Mandela actually didn't start out wanting to put his people above his family, but he found that stepping up to fight for his country totally prevented him from being a present son, brother, father, and husband.
Section 4. The Evolution of Freedom.
It's fascinating because Mandela wasn't actually born with this massive hunger to be free. His psychological journey happened in very profound stages. When he was just a boy, he honestly thought he was free. He could run in the fields, roast mealies under the stars, swim in the streams. But as he grew up, he realized this was just an illusion of freedom. When he became a student, his desires shifted to what he called transitory freedoms. Simple, everyday things like staying out at night or just reading whatever he wanted. Later on, as a young professional in Johannesburg, he really yearned for basic and honorable freedoms, earning a keep, getting married, having a family without the state getting in the way. But the real turning point? That happened when he realized that not only was he not free, but his brothers and sisters weren't free either. Once he joined the African National Congress, his own personal hunger for freedom completely transformed into a much, much greater hunger for the freedom of everyone who looked like him.
And this burning desire for the sheer dignity of his people, it animated his entire life from that point on. It completely transformed him. It took a rather frightened young man and turned him into a remarkably bold one. It drove a highly respectable, law-abiding attorney to literally become a criminal in the eyes of the state. It took a family-loving husband and forced him to live a life almost like a monk. He had this profound realization that freedom is totally indivisible. If the chains were on any one of his people, they were on all of his people. And if they were on all of his people, well, then those chains were on him too.
Section 5. Liberating the Oppressor.
Which brings us to what I think is Mandela's absolute most profound and maybe most challenging revelation. He wrote, "The oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity." I mean, wow, that is a stunning conclusion. Mandela realized that when you actively take away another person's freedom, you don't just harm them, you're actually destroying yourself. A man who takes away another man's freedom becomes a prisoner of his own hatred. He gets locked right behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Basically, you are not truly free if you are taking away someone else's freedom.
Mandela's incredibly long walk to freedom taught him that to be free is not just about casting off your own chains. It's about living in a way that respects and actually enhances the freedom of others. It's such a powerful, paradigm-shifting lens through which we can view history and, honestly, our current world today. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer.